I'm Tara from livingonadime.com. This is Michael.
Hi.
And on the other side of the screen, we have
Jill
from livingonadime.com.
From mom.com.
So we finally got Skype fixed and we're able to record some videos with Mom. And everyone wants to know Mom's story. Why?
Yeah, exactly. That's my question.
I'm kidding. Yeah, so we do...
It's a frightening story. You tell it around the campfire.
Well, thanks, Michael.
So we've had quite a few of adventures. We were talking about prepping yesterday, and as I was listing off the things that we've done just for prepping, I went through blizzards, tornadoes, mudslides, floods, wildfires, almost, not for us, but in Idaho we had them on, well, they were prairie fires, I guess, in Idaho. And I was thinking, wow, we really have had an adventurous life, not just with all the natural disasters, but... So we're gonna start in the beginning, when Tara was born, that lovely day in July.
Oh, listen to you. Actually, before I get to that, I wanted to kind of backtrack, and I've got a couple of things that's not my life story, but when people listen to you, and I know you guys are going to roll your eyes, but you can cut it later if you want. But
Redirect.
But when people watch our videos, there's a few things I want them to be aware of, to be careful of. And one of them is comparing. They tend to look at us and they see us, fairly healthy, feeling good, talking on here. And you can't compare yourself to other people. There's no two people alike. There's no two situations alike, no two families. That's kind of why I hate to give, I spend $20 a week on my groceries. And people want to know the numbers, and we give them the numbers, but every situation is so different that giving numbers is like of no use in my mind.
Well, yeah, $20 of groceries in New York City is completely different from $20 of groceries from Aldi's in Kansas. So,
well, yeah, exactly. I see these things on Pinterest that say something about, I fed my family on $100 a month. My family of four on $100 a month. Well, one gal is a mom with 3 teenage boys, and she said, what am I doing wrong? I'm not, I can't feed my family off $100 a month. Well, the person that said that has 2 toddlers and 2 adults, and she lives in totally different places, and so no, it's not going to be the same, but you do the best you can with what you have. And I just recently saw this picture on comparing of this gal. She was beautifully dressed, and her little girl was dressed to the nines, and she was in this brand new kitchen with granite countertops, top of the line, brings out her big, huge KitchenAid mixer, and it says bonding time with my daughter, and she's making little cookies with her daughter and everything. Well, now, if I'd seen that picture like 40 years ago, I maybe would have been a little bit discouraged. And I would have compared myself and thought, what am I doing wrong? Here's a picture of me bonding time with my daughter.
Aren't I cute?
Yes, you were cute. I don't know if you can notice, behind me is a thing of sheetrock. And we had just gotten that sink hooked up. That's all I had in the kitchen at this point was the sink. Where Tara is sitting, that's all the countertop I had. And
literally, that's like not even 12 inches of countertop, probably.
It's barely. And the other side had enough room to put a small dish rack on. That's all I had. My refrigerator was in another room. All the dishes were still in boxes on the floor. And, I could have been discouraged when I saw that, if I'd seen that picture when I was young and compared myself and think, what am I doing wrong?
Hold that picture up real quick. Can you see how she put my life in danger? See that open plug right there?
Oh, I
could have just stuck my finger in there.
Well, not only that, she's got a mixer in front of you, and there's not a plastic shield or anything.
Well,
I could have just put my hand in that mixer.
Well, you think that one's bad? Look, you took a bath in there with that light plug being there. I mean, it was like, we would have been, you guys wouldn't have lived with us very long. They would have come and taken you away if they, but people just did that back then. You didn't think anything about it.
Oh, people are just so paranoid about everything now.
I know.
Like, yeah.
I know. And you have to be careful. I'm not saying be careful, but that's just the way it was. You didn't worry and didn't have that spirit of fear quite as much as what you do now. But so anyway, you can't look at these videos. You can't say, oh, she's got that or she doesn't have that or they're doing this for the money and that type of thing. You have to be careful. One time, I've told this story a million times, and I've got 2 stories I'd like to tell. And I've told it before, but I think it bears repeating. We lived in a house, let me see, oh, here. This is what my house looked like most of the time. It was like this. Yeah.
If anybody doesn't know, that's called lath and plaster. It's not like drywall now.
Here's another picture. That's Laura.
They put these boards up with this plaster stuff, like cement type plaster stuff. And hold that one up again. Hold it. Wait a minute. The other one with the. So I remember picking all that wallpaper off.
She loved it. To this day, she loves picking stickers, and we put her to work picking the wallpaper, and she loved picking that wallpaper off.
And it was stuck on there. We had to take a steamer, but it was stuck.
It was bad. So we did this room. We took the wallpaper off this room, but what we ended up doing is pulling down all the lath and plaster in the other's room because we put the wallpaper off.
And hold it up again. After I was done picking wallpaper, I started picking on my toes.
I was going to say, do I tell what you're getting ready to do? She's getting ready to bite her toenails and chew her toenails off.
I used to chew my toenails.
True confessions.
Yeah, it was. I
never cut her toenails in her whole life. I never cut that child's toenails once when she was little. She chewed them all off.
They're always clean, usually.
So, this is how. Should I always do that before you got married, Michael? Should I have warned you of that?
She says they were always clean as she's sitting in a big pile of plaster all over the floor.
I know. Well, this was my life. This is what we lived like. Here's another little one.
And this could be you.
This is the bathroom scene. That's David, Carr's brother, in the bathroom. So this was the whole house, and the stuff sifted and moved and shifted. It was a mess. And so one day I was sitting at the kitchen table, and my husband walked through the doorway, and he looked down at me, and I had been very calm, tried so hard up to this point. Now, and took one look at him, he knew something was wrong real fast, and I burst out sobbing. I mean, this wasn't just a little crying, this was just sobbing. And I felt so bad for him, because most husbands, it's like, what did I do now? Oh no, how do I fix it? I could just tell that's what he was thinking, is what do I do now? How do I fix it? But he did very well. He came over and he grabbed me and put me on his lap and was comforting me, And when he finally got me calmed down to tell him what was wrong, because you'd think one of the kids had died or something the way I was going on. I said, I can't keep my house as clean as great-grandma's. And I was just hysterical because I could not keep that house. Now, great-grandma's house, you could eat off underneath the kitchen sink, couldn't you, Tara?
Yeah.
Off there. It was spotless.
Really, really clean.
And I said, I clean and I clean. I can't keep it clean. I was going on and on and on. And finally, he let me spew it all out. And he said, you know what? He said, great-grandma doesn't have 2 toddlers. She's not living in a house with the walls half off, on and off, in remodeling. She doesn't have a factory above her and below her, and trying to help with that factory and that business. And he was just listing all this stuff. He said,
and hold on just a second, in case anyone wants to know, we'll go into this a little bit more, but Mom and Dad made piano parts for Player Pianos and Nickelodeons, and so we actually produced the parts that go in the Player Pianos at amusement parks and stuff like that. And so we actually had a factory with drill presses and table saws and everything in our upstairs and our downstairs. We had an upstairs like apartment thing that was part of the house.
In a second, show them.
And it was like a 1920 house.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, and it was a house from the 20s. No central air, no central heat, nothing. Yeah.
And so, and it was hot. It was always hot, always cold in the house.
Kansas, it's 110 degrees in the summer. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and he said, and great grandma doesn't have to haul firewood in. I was going to show you a picture of, well, here you can see we had this potbelly stove, and that is what we heated.
There again, look at the child abuse. My brother's sitting with the dog with an open fire.
And he's got a smile on his face.
He always smiled then. He was always happy. But anyway, he's
What
so
happened?
sick now. That's why we were laughing about it, because he's so sick now half the time. But that's what we heated the house with, and I had to haul firewood in. We did, and I didn't have these wonderful little pieces of lumber. Well, first of all, that stove was from the 1800s. So it's not like this airtight, beautiful thing they have nowadays, and you put the log in and it burns for hours or whatever. That thing had so many holes in it, airtight was way beyond, it wasn't that at all. But I had to use little scraps of wood that we could just find, that we happened to have, no nice logs, just scraps of wood half the time. So I was forever filling this thing up. Then it would belch and blow out smoke and ashes out of all these holes, and the soot would get everywhere in the house. That's why, people talk about, how do I do spring house cleaning? We don't have to do spring house cleaning now, because it used to be they'd have these potbelly stoves like that, and it would belch all winter long and get soot and ashes and smoke. It would just billow smoke in the room. In Kansas, the wind can change within 2 minutes directions. It goes back and forth. So every time it did, it would poof smoke out of the potbelly stove.
Because the wind blows back down the chimney and causes it to cut.
Yeah, and people didn't realize there was this layer of black soot on everything in the 1800s.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody says, "Oh, I wish I could live like in the 1800s." Have mercy. It was nasty. Yeah.
So in the spring, they would take down all the curtains and wash them and starch and iron them. And then they would beat and clean the rugs, wash the knickknacks,
wash the walls down.
Wash the walls, because they could clean all the gook from winter and then have the summer where they didn't have the stove going, and burning it and everything. So that's why people did spring house cleaning. Nowadays, we don't have to deal with that. But that's what my house was like all the time, adding the sheetrock dust and different things. So my husband said, great grandma doesn't have any of those. And he said, besides, I don't care. I don't care about a little dirt. It doesn't matter. I just want you to be happy. And you
do you care about a little dirt?
He does.
I kind of care, yeah. But not as much as Karen, who would be in there vacuuming the dirt floor in the 1800s.
But he was really sweet. He said, the dirt doesn't mean anything. I could live in a house of dirt as long as you're happy. He said, just don't worry about it right now. Now is not your time to keep the house spotless. So I was feeling so much better, and I smiled at him, and he hugged me, and I kind of hiccuped. So he walked over to the refrigerator to get me a glass of water. And now I'm backtracking a little bit, because he was way taller than I was. And so for a long time after we got married, I'd say, would you tell me if the top of the refrigerator gets dirty so I don't have to drag a chair over, climb up to look to see if I needed to clean the top of the refrigerator? So I had him pretty well trained that if ever he noticed dirt was getting dirty up there, he would let me know. And so this day he went over to get my glass of water for me, after telling me, don't worry about it, I was doing a great job and everything. He opens the refrigerator and he says, did you see that there's dirt accumulating up here on the refrigerator? And the minute the words were out of his mouth, he paused, froze, kind of looked over at me like, what did I just say? And I looked at him and I burst out laughing, because I knew he was just horrified. He wasn't thinking when he said it, just after telling me 2 seconds later not to worry about the dirt. But he did grovel, Michael. He groveled for several days.
Michael's good at groveling.
Yeah, young single men
the whole
learn from those of us who are...
I was comparing myself in the worst way possible, and you can't do that. And one time, Tara, we were doing the website at that time, and there was another gal that started a website later after we had, and she was so successful and doing great, and she had this post that said, how I did 30 freezer meals in 8 hours. And it went on to say how she'd done 30 freezer meals in 8 hours, and she saved money and she saved time, and it was so wonderful, and it was so great. And Tara was really upset that day. I remembered she called me and she said, "What am I doing wrong?" And she said, "So and so went and wrote this post." And I said, "Okay, first of all, she has 2 kids, you have 4 kids, and one of them's a newborn, you know." And I said, then on top of that, she had employees. All Tara had was me, and she sort of had Michael doing the accounting, but she just had me, and that was it to try to help her. And then she had family members that helped her, you know, do different things. Well, she finally found out, she said it only took her 8 hours, but she said 4 of her family members came in to help her. So there were 5 of them working 8 hours on these 30 meals. If you multiply that, that means that they did 40 hours to do these 30 meals.
That's an entire week's worth of work.
Well, that is. Divide that, though, down even more.
An hour and 2 minutes a meal.
Yes, hour and 10 minutes a meal. So I'm thinking, I've never spent an hour and 10 minutes doing a meal. Never.
No.
Well, and didn't she also have someone taking care of her kids while they were doing
Then
it?
I was going to say, not only did she have that, but she had somebody babysitting the kids while she did this. And then she said it was cheaper. Well, it really wasn't. You use the same ingredients. You know, it can't be any cheaper. For each meal, you use the same ingredients, whether you do it daily.
I never have understood why people say it's cheaper. That makes absolutely no sense to me.
No, and if you think about it, she had bought disposable trays, plastic wrap, foil, and even some heavy-duty Ziploc freezer bags to put all these meals in for 30 days. That was a lot of disposable, you know, stuff to freeze them in. That stuff costs money. You know, even though we say it's okay to use it when you're sick and different times, that costs money. And so when I'm telling you this story, because when you break things down, things don't always look like what they do on the outside. When you break them down and start really knowing what's going on, you know, you're not doing so bad yourself probably. So be really careful when you're comparing yourself to...
Yeah, you have to make do with the circumstances that you have, you know, at the time. You can't just assume that some of these moms who are on there that have no kids. I mean, I know this one lady, and her house is just spotless, and she's a cleaning guru on there, and she shows how you clean everything. She has no kids.
Yeah.
Her husband is gone like 12 hours a day. Of course her house is completely spotless and completely organized. You know, having kids and trying to clean house is like shoveling snow when it's still blizzarding outside. You know?
Shoveling it with a trowel.
Exactly.
Yeah, shoveling it with a trowel at that instead of a snow shovel.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so,
even like when we went to that, for our CFS, they had a support group. For that one support group meeting we went to. How we ever even made it there, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we went to a support group, and this guy walks in. Gravity is winning. I'm sitting in this chair at this meeting, and gravity is winning because it's all I can do to keep in an upright position. And I'm about ready to sag to the floor. And this guy walks in a business suit, tie, and everything. We were lucky to get our clothes on.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even remember if we got our hair combed to go to that meeting. It's so bad. And he's dressed to the nines, and he says, I wanted to start this group because I have chronic fatigue syndrome, and I've had it for so many years. And I'm looking at him thinking, you know, and then somebody said, well, do you work? And he said, oh, yeah. And I'm thinking, how is this possible? And I was more discouraged than I've ever been seeing that guy. I thought, this is not supporting me at all. It's discouraging me. Well, come to find out, the more he talked, he owned his own business, so he could take off work whenever he wanted and work whatever hours he wanted. He also kept a couch in his office so he could lay down if he needed to. And he'd had it for many, many years, so he'd learned how to just, you know, work with his illness. So I don't want people seeing us on our videotapes thinking, oh, they're doing so great, why can't I do that, and get discouraged, you know?
And they see, we've been sick for 28 years now. We got chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia in 1998. Mom and my brother and I all came down with the flu, and we just never got better. I got fibromyalgia. Mom and David only got the chronic fatigue syndrome. But
You're special.
Yes, I have both. I'm special. And they are a different illness for anybody who's wondering, because I can tell when my CFS is flaring or my fibromyalgia. It's a totally different thing. But anyway, totally forgot the whole point of that.
Well, what you're saying is we've learned to adapt to it.
So now you see us on the videos.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, you look great. What you don't see is after the videos, I'm laying on the couch mumbling because I can't remember my name.
You're speaking in tongues, woman?
And Mike's bringing me an Alka-Seltzer, or I have my head in the toilet because I feel like I'm going to throw up because I'm so sick. And by the way, I did that last night. You just didn't know. You slept through it. So
in the toilet.
So people don't see that side of it. And I keep telling Mike that we need to start recording that side of it so they can see.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to say this before I started telling about my life so much, because I didn't want people to get, so discouraged, and you will. So you can't compare. I don't want you to get, the second thing is to get discouraged. And I won't be as long on the discouragement, but you can get easily discouraged. I want you to just, the secret to that is to keep going, keep trying, do just a little bit of what you can, and keep doing that. I was driving through this immaculate neighborhood. The yard was perfect, and the whole area was just beautiful. Flower beds like you can't describe. And, of course, I don't have a yard like that. Tara will attest to that.
She doesn't even come close.
I don't.
Gardener's nightmare.
No, I don't. I noticed yesterday most of my soil was washing down because I'm missing out a bunch of grass and it's going into the street, so I figured I should do something about that. But anyway, that's getting on the sidetrack here.
That's because your gardener moved to Colorado.
Yeah, I know. But I saw this beautiful yard, and I was feeling so discouraged about that beautiful yard and everything. Well, it was a couple days later, I was driving through another neighborhood that it was horrible. They had junk in the yards, trash, garbage, paint peeling off all the houses. I mean, one of the worst neighborhoods I've ever seen. But I wanted to just kind of get through it real fast because it was kind of creepy. But I went by one house. No, it wasn't my house, Michael. I went by this one house and I looked. The porch had been very carefully swept, neat, and clean. And on there sat a little tiny, about a 4-inch pot with one stem of geranium, a little red geranium on that corner. And I looked at that thing and I thought, that woman, in spite of the chaos around her, in spite of what little she has and the awful mess she probably was living in, she had her potted geraniums.
She at least was taking care of what she did have.
She was doing the best she could with what she had. Yeah. And every time I see something like that, that encourages me more than those well-manicured yards with all what I mean.
Yeah.
And that moved me so much that day, seeing that pot with red geranium in it. And I've done that before in a neighborhood where they've just had a little Christmas wreath and nothing else, just their little tiny Christmas wreath. And you go by places that have, like ours, that have lights all over everywhere, decked out, but they have their one little Christmas wreath. And so I say that so you don't get discouraged. Do what you can with what you have.
Start by taking care of what you do have. You know, and even though our house was a disaster, it wasn't like we were, it looks like we were that way, but, because it's from the 70s. But, you always made sure that the portions of the house that were done were clean.
Yeah.
And picked up, and always made sure that our clothes were always clean. And so we didn't look like ragamuffins when we left the house, And even though our house was a disaster a lot of times, the portions that were done...
What I could control.
It was done nice. And it was done neatly, even if it was that small portion, in spite of my father's hoarding issues.
But your picture might show exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, this is an exact example of what I'm talking about.
First of all, Tara's having a bad hair day again. She's had a bad hair day ever since she was a toddler.
I was.
I had that up close enough. But I want you to see, okay, we just moved into this house. The refrigerator's in the dining room. If you walk through it to another room, the stove was in another room with no cabinets, nothing. It was just a stove sitting in an empty room, shell. But then I had to walk through another doorway to go in and use a bathtub to wash the dishes in, to wash the tomato off, get water. But what Tara was talking about, and you can see my dishes are on, let's see, on the floor. Which side? I don't know which side.
There.
The box is on the floor. That's where all my dishes, I had to dig everything. Nothing was unpacked. But what I want you to see, what Tara was talking about. Will you notice here on the table, I couldn't find the right tablecloth. Nothing matched, but I put a tablecloth on the table to make it look
nice dishes.
Nice. I had the good dishes on there, set nice with the silverware. This was the best I could do at that time. You know, I at least was trying to have some semblance of a normal life. And that's what I'm trying to say, you know, even no matter what your circumstances, whether you're sick, disabled, whatever, whether you are a single mom, you know, have no money, work, no matter where you live, you do the best you can with what you have. And that's all you need to do. Now, the last thing, and then I'll get into my story. The last thing is, I've always said, if you acknowledge you have a problem, you're 50% along solving that problem. Really, once you accept the fact, I have a problem or a situation, when you do that, you're halfway there to getting it solved. So I heard this saying, and I'm looking at my paper because I want to get this right, a couple of weeks ago that I thought was really good, you know, about comparing and getting discouraged. But the third thing, when you're watching our videos, these aren't going to help you any if you don't have the right mindset and the right attitude. And so you can watch every video on YouTube ever made to get tips and ideas and try to change, but unless your mind is in the right place, it's not going to help you at all. But the saying says, change always begins with ownership, never excuse making or blaming. And I love that saying because that is the truth. Until you accept responsibility and say, you know, I maybe got us in debt. We maybe shouldn't have bought this expensive house, or I shouldn't have spent money on whatever. Or the excuse making is, well, I can't do it because I'm a single mom, and I can't do it because I'm elderly, or I'm disabled, or my kids, blaming stuff. My kids would get mad at me. My husband or wife are doing this or that, so I can't get out of debt because of my husband or wife, you know. Or even the government, you know, because of the government. Or now, society now, things are so much harder now. You're blaming the time period that you're living in. It's always blaming and excuses. You will get no place as long as you're making excuses and trying to blame. Don't you guys think that's true?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the biggest problem we see is people just don't want to own up that they have to take the responsibility to spend their money responsibility.
Well, partly because if you say it's somebody else's fault, then how can you fix it?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you admit that you contributed to it at least, there's something you can do.
Yeah, yeah. And so, you know, even when we get comments, immediately there's, you know, you've got to be really careful. Think, well, I don't blame anything. But do you say, well, I can't save money because I'm on a special diet. I have to eat certain things, so I can't save money or do these things. Those are all types of blame and excuses that you're making, you know.
Or you don't have any tips for single people. I get that almost every day. I get a comment.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you don't have tips for single people. This is all for families. No, you're single, and they're your tips half as much as they are mine.
I know.
I maybe have a family of 7, but you're by yourself.
I know.
And it's the same principles. Just cut it down by 7.
Or they'll say, well, where we live, you know, we live in this state or this country or whatever, you know, we say, don't spend so much money. That tip's going to work no matter what state you live in or what country you live in. It's just common sense. And so I wanted to leave everybody with that idea before I start into my story. because if you don't watch these videos with the right attitude and in the right way, you'll get discouraged. You'll keep comparing yourself. You'll compare yourself to us and get discouraged. And if you don't accept that there is a problem that you need to fix, then, that's what's going to happen.
All right, so the introduction was just 45 minutes long. So we're going to wrap that up for today, and then we will be back in a couple of days, and we're going to start with Mom's story. My story. Everybody says it's Mom's story. Hello, I was there too.
Yeah, she wanted to say, well, I can tell about, I said the first year we were married, well, I can tell about the first year I was born and stuff. Oh, yeah, you're going to tell about your birth and all this kind of stuff?
It was tragic.
It was tragic,
sure.
Listen to you.
All right, so we'll be back in a couple of days, and we're going to start with probably when you moved into your 1920s Victorian house.
When we first got married. I just do that first year real quick. When we first
That far back?
That far back.
That's fine. We'll start with Mom got married, and we're going back into the ancient days,
Oh,
Did you know Noah back then?
You better
tell us
be
what
nice.
It was like discovering fire.
You better be nice to your only babysitter.
My only babysitter? You're in Kansas.
I can't use that excuse anymore, can I?
All right, guys, we'll be back. Please visit us at livingonadime.com. And actually, okay, a little plug here first. So Mom wrote 500 ways I saved $500. And a lot of these tips are going to be in here in our Penny Pinch Moment. Now, this is our print book, and it's going to be on sale for 50% off until we sell out of them, because then we're going straight to ebook, because I'm tired of shipping books. So if you want Mom's tips on how she did it, a lot of this is going to be in here on the practical things. So grab that at livingonadime.com, and we will be back in a few days.
Bye-bye.
Bye.